สวัสดีครับท่านผู้ชมครับกลับเข้าสู่เสียงไทยเพื่อสิทธิเสรีภาพของคนไทยทาง Voicemedia.com กันอีกครั้งหนึ่งนะครับอย่างที่เราทราบกันนะครับรัฐบาลของพลเอกประยุทธ์จันทร์โอชาในประเทศไทยนั้นตอนนี้ก็ยังคงมีความเข้มงวดเลยมีความจริงจังอย่างยิ่งในการที่จะดำเนินการกับผู้ที่เห็นต่างหรือว่าผู้ที่มีการวิพากษ์วิจารณ์ตั้งคำถามของรัฐบาลพลเอกประยุทธ์นะครับแม้ว่าประชาชนอาจจะมีความเดือดร้อนในเรื่องของการทำมาหากินแต่ว่าการจะออกมาเคลื่อนไหวในการที่จะเรียกร้องความเดือดร้อนนี้ก็ดูเหมือนว่าจะทำไม่ได้หลายคนนั้นถูกคสช.เรียกตัวไปรายงานตัวไปปรับทัศนคติไม่ว่าจะเป็นนักวิชาการนักการเมืองนักศึกษาหรือว่าประชาชนทั่วไปนะครับและการบังคับใช้กฎหมายที่เป็นการละเมิดสิทธิมนุษยชนก็ยังคงมีการบังคับใช้อย่างเข้มงวดนะครับไม่ว่าจะเป็นมาตรา112ไม่ว่าจะเป็นพรบคอมพิวเตอร์นะครับโดยเฉพาะมาตรา112นั้นเนี่ยก็มีการบังคับใช้จะเรียกว่าตลอดตั้งแต่ที่รัฐบาลคสช.เข้ามาบริหารประเทศนะครับมาตรานี้มีการบังคับใช้อย่างเข้มงวดทีเดียวเป้าหมายของคสช.ก็คือความพยายามในการที่จะปกป้องสถาบันพระมหากษัตริย์แต่อะไรก็ตามนะครับก็คงต้องยอมรับว่าสถาบันพระมหากษัตริย์ไทยในเวลานี้นั้นก็ถูกมีการวิพากษ์วิจารณ์มากแม้ว่าในประเทศไทยอาจจะกระทำไม่ได้แล้วแต่ว่าในสื่อต่างประเทศในนานาประเทศเองก็มีการวิเคราะห์ถึงบทบาทของสถาบันพระมหากษัตริย์ไทยกับการเมืองไทยอย่างมากเหมือนกันรายการเสียงไทยเพื่อสิทธิเสรีภาพของคนไทยในวันนี้ก็จะคุยเรื่องนี้นะครับโดยจะคุยกับจะเป็นนักข่าวหรือว่าเป็นสื่อมวลชนท่านหนึ่งนะครับเป็นชาวต่างประเทศเป็นชาวอังกฤษที่มีผลงานและก็ให้ความสนใจในเรื่องของสถาบันพระมหากษัตริย์ไทยมาโดยตลอดนะครับมีผลงานหลายเรื่องนะฮะทั้งในเรื่องของบทวิเคราะห์บทความหรือแม้แต่การนำเสนอการวิพากษ์วิจารณ์ต่างๆนะครับผลงานล่าสุดของเขาก็คือ Kingdom in Crisis นะครับซึ่งเป็นหนังสือที่มีการพูดถึงแล้วก็วิเคราะห์ถึงสถาบันพระมหากษัตริย์ไทยที่น่าสนใจและก็เป็นหนังสือที่แน่นอนต้องห้ามสำหรับประเทศไทยด้วยนะครับและก็ไม่สามารถที่จะจำหน่ายได้ในประเทศไทยแต่อย่างไรก็ตามหนังสือนี้ก็ได้มีการเผยแพร่มีการนำเสนอและมีการอ่านกันอย่างกว้างขวางในนานาชาติทีเดียวนะครับวันนี้เราจะคุยกับบุคคลท่านนี้นะครับคุณแอนดรูแม็กเกรโกมาเชลนะครับซึ่งตอนนี้อยู่ในสกายของเราแล้วเดี๋ยวเราจะไปพูดคุยกับเขานะครับสวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีครับสวัสดีครับขอบคุณมากที่ร่วมรายการนะครับได้ยินเสียงผมนะฮะ
ครับ
ครับดีครับอันดับแรกเลยคงจะคุยกันหลายๆประเด็นแต่ว่าประเด็นที่อยากจะคุยมากแน่นอนบทสิ่งที่คุณแอนดรูให้ความสนใจก็คือเรื่องของสถาบันพระมหากษัตริย์ I'm sorry I talked to in Thai but I know you know a little bit about speaking in Thailand but I will interview you in English anyway okay the first thing that I want to know or get from your information or in your opinion that why or what make you interesting in Thai monarchy what is the thing that it motivate you to interesting in Thai monarchy
sure there's several reasons but probably the most important reason is that I love Thailand I first visited Thailand nearly about 14 years ago and I was working for Reuters at that time and from the time I arrived in Thailand, I thought it was a wonderful country. I met lots of great people, and I found the culture fascinating. And the whole country, there's so many beautiful things to see. So I kind of fell in love with Thailand. I spent 2 years there working for Reuters. And even after I left, I was sent off to go live in Baghdad, where I was covering the Iraq war, which was quite dangerous. And every time I had a holiday from the war, I'd always come back to Thailand because it was a great place to come and relax. And I really missed Thailand. I really loved it. And as I spent more time in Thailand and got to know Thailand better, I realized that even though it's a beautiful country and a wonderful country, it has a terrible elite. So I developed a kind of love-hate relationship with Thailand where I love the country and I love the ordinary people. But I hate the system and the inequality. And it became very difficult for me to enjoy going to Thailand because every time I was there, I started noticing all the inequality, the way that the rich are always exploiting the poor, way there's no real justice. It's only justice for the rich and the strong against the weak.
Yeah.
So that became increasingly difficult for me, and I started feeling I wanted to do something for Thailand. Eventually, I moved to Singapore after I was in Iraq and the Middle East, and part of my job was to write about Thailand, and I became also very troubled by the fact that no media is writing about the Thai monarchy because of 112. And as you know, the more somebody gets to know Thailand, the more you understand that so much that you're told is a lie. So all these things the tourists are told about how everybody loves the king, it's a happy country, everybody is content, and Thai people just want to be humble, they don't, the poor people don't need democracy. All of this is a lie. And no media was reporting this because they were all scared. So I thought, if I want to do something good for Thailand, I should be somebody that starts trying to tell the truth about some of these things.
Yeah.
But as a foreigner, it's more safe for me. So,
yeah. But how you know your idea is good for Thai people or Thailand? How you know that?
Well, because I think you can't have a fair and democratic country based on lies. An essential component of any democracy and any good society is that people can speak freely without fear, they can debate, and their rights are respected. So, to me, it's obvious that one thing Thailand needs is honesty and debate. And it's very hard for Thais inside Thailand to do this because, as you know from your own experience, you have to go into exile. Now, I'm a foreigner, so it was really less of a sacrifice for me to start telling the truth. And I thought if I want to do something good for Thailand, I should make a contribution. So back 3 years ago, I got hold of all the WikiLeaks cables on Thailand. Well, actually, I had all the WikiLeaks cables from all around the world before they became public. But when I thought, which is the country in the world where these cables can be the most useful, I thought it was Thailand, because Thailand is quite unique, that the official story is a bunch of lies and nobody really talks about the true story, but these cables revealed a lot of the truth. So that was when I resigned my job at Reuters, because they didn't want to allow me to write this. So I had to quit my job, and obviously I committed lèse-majesté when I wrote this, so I can't go back. And ever since then, the reason I focus on the monarchy is because it's illegal and there's not been enough scrutiny of it. So it's not that I hate the royal family, because they're human beings like everybody else. You can't hate them, but I hate the system, and I hate the dishonesty, and I hate the lack of freedom of speech. So that's why I'm hoping to do something. And obviously now it's even more important to me because I have a Thai wife, and my son is half Thai, and I want him to grow up being proud of his country, and I want him to grow up with a Thailand that you can speak freely and it's democratic. So that's my hope for Thailand.
Yes. So what about many older people or conservative people in Thailand? They say the system that you try to make the people understand about your thinking, that you don't like this system, but this system, some people say it's very good or it's fixed for Thai people. We cannot have a full democracy in Thailand because the qualities of the people is not not fixed enough for their idea. And when we have a fully democracy in Thailand, we have many problems. We created a problem and many conflicts based on the fully democracy. What you thinking about this idea?
Well, obviously, the people that say Thailand can't have democracy, it's never the people who are poor and who, you know, are weak and don't have power. People who are powerful and who are threatened by democracy, and they try to pretend that Thai people are somehow, their culture doesn't make democracy, is not compatible with democracy. But that's clearly ridiculous. The Thais, you know, are like people all over the world, ordinary people. They want freedom of speech. They want to have a better life for their children. They want to be able to work, to get fair wage. They want to be treated fairly by the legal system. So these are things that people all over the world want, and Thais are no different. What we see in Thailand is a entrenched elite that's been in power really for centuries by maintaining a very hierarchical society. And they don't want people to be democratic. And so you have these ridiculous arguments that people are not educated enough to have democracy. And at the same time, you see the elite, they've never encouraged good education in Thailand. They're afraid of Thais being well educated because that would then lead them to demand more rights. But one thing to be clear about is democracy is never perfect. It's all, you know, every country of the world, Thailand, my country, the UK, the United States, everywhere that has democracy. Of course, sometimes there's corruption, sometimes there's problems, sometimes you have bad governments. But the best way to deal with that is then you have another election and you vote for somebody else. And the other point is that democracy strengthens over time. So, of course, in the early stages of democracy in Thailand, there are problems, and sometimes it can be a bit chaotic. But if democracy is allowed to take root over time, people will learn, and the system will work better. But Thais have never been allowed to really learn about democracy, because every time they have democracy for a decade or two, there's another coup, and it gets taken away. So it's nonsense to say that Thais are not suited for democracy. They are, and ordinary people want democracy. And to me, that's the most interesting development of the past, 10 or 20 years, is that ordinary people now, they're much more aware of the wider world. They're much better informed, and they've become politically aware, and they're demanding their rights, and so they should.
Yeah, but you're talking about the politics in Thailand, about democracy, and you think it's good for Thai people to have a better life based on the real democracy. But why we have to thinking and pull the monarchy, Thai monarchy, to get involved in the politics in Thailand? Because many Thai people thinking that the king or the monarchy in Thailand not involved in the politics in many different ways. But yeah, right now we have many evidence that monarchy is got involved. But in the many people, they're thinking Thai monarchy is not thing to do to a political conflict in Thailand. What do you think about this?
Well, it's clear that the monarchy does get involved in politics. We've seen that many times, most famously in 1973, 1992, when the king intervened. But we also know that behind the scenes, the palace intervenes all the time. It's not always the royals themselves, it's not always the king or queen. I think it's more useful to think about the amart or the elite as a whole, because they often use the name of the monarchy and use people's reverence for the monarchy to justify their own power. So it's not just the palace, it's a wider elite. And they use Article 112 and they use reverence for the monarchy to try to say that this is a sacred system that can never be changed. They deserve to always remain in power. And this has to stop. So, it's not just the monarchy, it's the wider elite. The other key point is that a lot of the monarchy's power is financial, because it's the richest monarchy in the world. King Bhumibol is the richest man in Asia. A lot of royalists say that the Crown Property Bureau money is not controlled by the monarch, but that's not true. If you look at the law, it's clear that the monarch can do what they wish with the Crown Property Bureau money. And I think that's one reason the royal succession is becoming so controversial, because it's really a battle for control of this money. So when you have a monarchy that's politically interventionist, also fighting amongst themselves, many of the royals, but they're all trying to intervene, sometimes openly, usually behind the scenes, and when it's also so powerful economically in the country, it's quite clear that it's a huge factor in Thai politics. And I know a lot of Thais believe that the monarchy is, or that the king is above politics, but I think the evidence proves otherwise.
Yeah. The richest people in Thailand, I mean in Asia or in the world, is about my king or King of Thailand. But in his property, in his money, some people from the palace say it's not his money. His money had been used to help the people to do many, like thousands of projects to improve quality life of Thai people. That is, if they had a lot of money and rich person, but his riches or his money had been using for helping the people. Are you believe in this idea, or do you think?
No, I mean this is part of the myth of the monarchy, but in fact, the truth is the opposite. It's true that the king and some of his family have supported a lot of royal projects over the years, but when you look at where the money came from these royal projects, it almost always comes from the taxpayer. It's a royal project, but the money's coming from the people. And if you try to look at the royal projects and find credible accounts where they show how much money's come in, how much has been spent, you can't find them. And that's the first sign of a dubious business. You know, if you're ever going to invest in any business or do business with somebody and you ask to see their accounts and they don't even have public accounts, that's a sign that something dubious is going on. Now, if you look at what the Thai monarchy gets from the national budget every year, it's a huge amount. It's it gets the most of per capita of any country of the world every year, in addition to the money it has. And even the Crown Property Bureau itself admits that it's worth about $35 billion, which is a huge fortune. So if the king and the royal family were really spending all their money on the people, how would they have so much more money now than they did at the start of the king's reign? It's obvious that whatever good they've been doing, and some of the royal projects did do some good, but overall, they've been taking much more money from the people than they've ever given back. And they've been hiding this under the myth of the king's goodness and so on. But if you look at the facts, you can't argue that the king has spent his money helping Thailand's people. In fact, the royal family and the elite have become rich at the expense of Thailand's people.
Yeah, but from the beginning, you thinking about you hate the system of the Thai country. Do you think this system that involved with the monarchy, or it's only about the system, not involve the monarchy?
Sorry, can you repeat?
You hate the system in Thailand, right? Maybe the internet had been. Are you okay? Try to. I will call you back. Okay. Alright. So internet อาจจะมีปัญหานะครับเดี๋ยวผมพยายามจะติดต่อทางคุณแอนดรูว์แมคกรูโกไปอีกครั้งหนึ่งนะครับเพราะว่าระบบอินเทอร์เน็ตบางทีก็ you come back.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, I was
cut off quick.
It's okay. Alright, you come back. Okay, it's about my question, and I'm sorry about my English is not good enough, but I tried to ask you about this. You hate the system in Thailand. What do you think this system get involved with the monarchy in Thailand, or not involved together or something?
Well, I think the monarchy is a key part of the system in Thailand, but the issue is in Thailand, the basic issue is that it's a very hierarchical society where everybody is supposed to know their place in society, and where people who are richer or from a more it's acceptable to exploit people below them. And so it's a society where the strong prey on the weak. And the monarchy is part of that, because obviously the monarchy is the symbolic pinnacle of society. But also, the monarchy kind of gives this whole system of the strong exploiting the weak, it gives it some kind of legitimacy. As if to say, this is the way things are supposed to be. It's natural for society to be unequal. You know, whereas democracy believe that every person is equal and should have equal rights. And monarchies are the opposite of that, because they say there are some people who are born special and have more rights. So the problem is not just the monarchy. I think the problem is the Thai elite and the way that throughout society at all levels, people want to exploit those below them, and that's culturally acceptable. So I certainly don't blame the monarchy for all of Thailand's problems, but it's part of the problem.
Yeah. And what do you think about the Thai monarchy right now? What is going to be happening? You have many, information inside the palace. And what are you thinking, and what do you see what's going on in the Thai monarchy right now, and involved with the politics in Thailand right now also?
Sure. Well, the monarchy is in crisis, and this is one reason why we've seen this political conflict that's got worse and worse since 2005. As you know, the king is very ill. He's practically dead, and he can't really he's not really actively involved in Thai politics anymore. His brain is gone, his body is failing. And the queen, who was also much more active for many years and much more conservative even than the king, she also suffered a stroke a couple of years ago, and she's also really not actively involved anymore. And as everybody knows, for all his faults, millions of Thais revere the current king. But after he dies, there will never be the same reverence for the monarchy again. Whoever comes next, whoever succeeds the king, the days where people worship the king will end when this king dies. So the most likely possibility is that Crown Prince Vajiralongkorn becomes the next king. As we know, he's very unpopular. And it's likely that a lot of Thais will just lose faith in the monarchy, because even a lot of middle-class and elite Thais don't support Vajiralongkorn. In fact, a lot of them hate him. And even if the royals and the elite try to change the succession and put somebody else in power, so they avoid Vajiralongkorn because he's too controversial, they still can't get the same reverence for the monarchy that there has been under Bhumibol. So we're really seeing the dying days of the old system. And I think this is why we've seen 2 coups since 2006. This is why the use of the lèse-majesté law has become more and more extreme and crazy, because the elite can see that the old system is dying and they don't know what to do. And so they're panicking and they're becoming more and more extreme to try and maintain a dying system. So I think, the elite and the monarchy are in a position of great weakness. It seems to us often after the coup last year that they're in control, they're very strong, and it's very easy to be pessimistic about democracy. But I think we're actually seeing the last battle of the old elite. Because the monarchy can't carry on as it has before. It's over. And the old elite just haven't figured out what they're going to do and how they're going to survive without, reverence for the king to hold everything together.
So, what about the Thai government right now, General Prayut, they can do to protect the monarchy, or what do you think he can do for save monarchy right now?
Well, it's important to realize that everything that the military has done since 2006, and everything that the old royalist elite have done, is not saving the monarchy, it's bringing the monarchy closer to destruction. Because in 2006, before the coup then, most Thais loved Bhumibol, most Thais supported the monarchy. And because of the actions of the military and the royalists and the yellow shirts and Suthep and his mob since 2006 until now, millions of Thais have lost faith in the monarchy, and millions of Thais are questioning the monarchy. And we've never seen Thailand being against the monarchy as we see now in 2015. And the fault of that is the military and the elite, because their actions have shocked ordinary people and led many ordinary people, especially the red shirts, but also many more, to question the royal family. So if the monarchy is going to survive into the future, the best thing that Thais can do is to build constitutional monarchy, like the UK or European countries, where the monarch has only symbolic power and no real power. And they need to abolish Article 112, because people have to be able to talk freely. And then, they'll find that the monarchy as a symbolic institution, I'm sure many people will love and support the Thai monarchy the same way that many British people love the Queen and they love the royals, because they know that the royal family are not interfering in politics, and the royal family is not constraining their freedom. So, trying to jail people just for speaking about the monarchy and seizing, destroying democracy every time you're concerned about a democratically elected government, that will never help the monarchy. But obviously, Prayut and his junta, they don't understand this. So their actions are driving the monarchy to destruction.
You say that right now the Thai monarchy going to be over. What about a lot of Thai people who love the Thai monarchy and try to protect them? And yes, we have some Thai people that they don't like that and they want to change or adjust the Thai monarchy to be in the good way, in the democracy way. What's going on between two groups of Thai people in the future?
I mean, I don't think the monarchy is necessarily over, but I think the days when almost all Thais loved the king and nobody criticized the monarchy, that's over. I think the monarchy will probably survive, although it may not. But if it survives, as I say, it has to change to be a fully constitutional monarchy, where it only has symbolic role and it does not interfere in politics. So it has to go through a transition, like we saw with the Japanese royal family. The last century until the Second World War, the Japanese royal family, it's a bit like the Thais now. And after the war, the Japanese royal family stepped right away from interfering in politics. And many Japanese still respect them. And the royal family is still surviving, but it survives because it only has symbolic power. And that's what Thai royal families do. And I think if the Thai royal family were to become purely symbolic, many Thais would want to keep the royal family. But it's because the royal family has come to represent oppression and inequality and lack of freedom of speech. That's the reason so many Thais are angry with the royal family. Obviously, after Bhumibol, nobody else will ever have the same love or same reverence from the people, because I think many Thais are not really, they don't really love the monarchy, they love Bhumibol. And to a smaller extent, they love Pratap. But apart from that, the love for the rest of the royal family is, tends to be fairly weak. And there are a lot of Thais, even who are not so radical, who say that after this king's reign, it might be time for the monarchy to end. There's not so much enthusiasm for the monarchy itself. I think a lot of the enthusiasm is specifically for the king. So this is the reason the monarchy is really facing crisis.
In Thailand, we have two groups of the people who try to support. One group of the people, some say maybe red shirt, supporting the Chulalongkorn or Prince, but yellow shirt or some conservative or old people try to support the princess.
Yes.
After King Bhumibol passed away, do you think we going to have a conflict and the battle between two groups of Thai people?
I think the battle's already been happening since 2005. You know, this succession battle, as you say, between two factions of the elite. Some backing Vajiralongkorn and others backing Pratap. That's been going on since 2005. And when the yellow shirts, you know, talk about their hatred for Thaksin and so on, I think one reason they hated Thaksin was because they feared that he was an ally of the prince. So they're not really terrified of Thaksin alone. What they're terrified of is Thaksin being allied with the prince. So this is only one factor in Thailand's crisis, obviously, because the bigger story is that ordinary people don't have democracy. They don't have the rule of law. There's still huge inequality and unfairness. And that's the big story in Thailand. But certainly among the elite and among these rival factions, there is a succession battle going on. And this is one reason for the coups. This is why the royalists have been so desperate to destroy Thaksin's political influence. And more academics and journalists are now saying this. I mean, I've been saying this for many years, and many more people are now saying it. And my impression is that it's caused a rethink even among the royalists, and they may now have decided that it has to be the prince. So from my sources, the latest information I'm hearing is that even the Privy Council, which previously was really against the prince, and the Eastern Tigers military bloc with around Prawit Wongsuwan and Prayut Chan-ocha, and you know, all the old royalists, they're deciding that their only option is really to back the prince now, but try and split him away from Thaksin. So this is why they're still doing their best to destroy Thaksin's political influence. And this is why they've allowed the prince to divorce his third wife. He's going to be marrying a new one, so there'll be a new heir to the throne. And it seems there's some deal being done among the junta and the elite and the prince. So it's still possible that we'll see a conflict after the king dies. But I think the main point is that this conflict has already been going on for 9 years already. And so the conflict over succession might be decided even before the king dies. That still remains to be seen.
Some source in Thailand told me, and just get the idea, if some people try to support the princess, and the princess maybe, if I can say, if she want to be a next king, or she want to be a queen or a king, what do you think going to be happen between the prince and the princess in Thailand?
Well, I think it's actually very unlikely that Pratap will be the next monarch, but it's more possible that she could be made the regent. And what a lot of the royalists have been planning for many years was they're going to try and push the prince aside, and they would make the next king one of the prince's sons. And then because if it was Prince Dipangorn, he's still a boy. So then Pratap could reign as regent until Dipangorn is 20 years old, and she would really be controlling the palace, even though she wasn't the monarch. So that's been the plan for quite a long time of some quite powerful factions of the elite. Obviously, things have suddenly changed in the past 2 months because the prince's third wife, Srilat, she's now been banished. All of her family have been arrested and charged with 112 and other crimes. So there's been a huge purge of Srilat's family. And one consequence of this is that little Prince Dipangorn, he can never be king, because you can't imagine a king whose half his family have been jailed for 112. It makes no sense. But we know that Sutida Vajiralongkorn, who's the prince's mistress in Munich for many years, and now seems to be his number one. And she had a son a few months ago. So it's possible that this little infant boy could become next monarch, and Pratap would be regent. A lot of the elite think that they could maybe persuade the prince to accept a deal like that because his son would still be king. The prince hates royal duties, and with this kind of deal, he wouldn't have to do royal duties. He would get a powerful title, and he'd be free to live how he wants. But my impression of the prince is that he's been disrespected by the elite for so long. He really wants, he wants to be king. He wants to do it. So I think this is all just games, and I think it's going to be very hard for them to stop the prince becoming king. But obviously, if we do see a family squabble, it could lead to real violence, even worse than the violence we've seen from time to time since 2005 onwards.
But the princess, she don't want to be a king, in your opinion?
I think she's started to show signs that she's been dragged into this conflict. For many years, as you know, she was signaling that she has no interest in the throne. She's never married. She set up a palace or a residence near Beijing in China, and she let people know that when the king dies, she'd probably move abroad, so she wouldn't be a threat to the prince. Because I think she was concerned about her own safety when the king dies, and she wanted to show the prince and show others that she had no desire to be next monarch. But my impression is that since her mother had a stroke, since Sirikit had a stroke in 2012, we've seen Sirnhorn becoming more politically active. She's, especially with Sutep's mob, the Sutep's PDRC, we saw her giving money to them, visiting people in hospital. And a lot of my sources say that she became, she has some advisors around her who've been trying to drag her in. And my impression of Pratap is that she's quite a nice person, but she's quite naive. The palace says she's a genius, but she's far from being a genius. And I think people around her have been trying to draw her into the conflict and telling her that she has to save Thailand, and she kind of believes it. So there's a chance that she'll be, there'll be some kind of deal made where she becomes regent. And I think she is being brought in, which is very dangerous because it raises the likelihood of a even worse conflict when Bhumibol dies.
What do you think if the Chulalongkorn become a king, and we have many rumor about the conflict between the prince and the council preview?
Yes.
Especially General Prem and many members of preview. This what happen if the prince become the king?
Well, what the old elites are terrified of, and what Prem is terrified of, is that the prince still has an alliance with Thaksin, and that he would pardon Thaksin and bring Thaksin back. It's widely known that the prince hates Prem and the old elite, and they hate him. And we also know that the prince, he can be a very angry man, and he doesn't like being disrespected. So he may get his revenge on these old elite and throw them out, so he'll have a whole new privy council. And the old elite, suddenly, they'll be, their power will be gone. And we would see a new elite rising up around Thaksin and the prince. Because Thaksin and the prince could be good allies. The prince controls all the royal money, which is a huge... Thaksin still is hugely popular among the ordinary people of Thailand, and he can help bring the prince something he has always lacked, which is legitimacy and popularity. Because if you look at the Thai royal family since 2005, the only person in the royal family who's now more popular than they were in 2005 is the prince. He actually became more popular because a lot of red shirts and ordinary people started to think that he's on their side. All the other royals are much less popular now. So we're seeing this big change, and it is possible. And this is what the old elite are terrified of, that they'll face an alliance of Thaksin and Chulalongkorn, who'll have huge amount of votes. Thaksin will have the votes, the prince has the money, so they'll be able to dominate politics and business for many years. And I think that's why we're seeing the efforts of the old elite to try to split up Thaksin and the prince, to try and destroy Thaksin's power. And that's going to continue because they're terrified of this possible alliance between the prince and Thaksin, and they're going to do anything they can to stop it.
But Thai people, they don't like, in the way that you try to explain about what's going on in Thailand after the king died, because they don't want to bring the king involved the Thaksin, and they don't want Thaksin use the monarchy or the king or the next king to get involved in the politics in Thailand. So this is another conflict also. Even Prince tried to deal with the Thaksin or the politics and try to save his power if he going to be the king. But many Thai people, they don't like this way. I mean, don't like the prince, and they don't like bring the monarchy to get involved in the politics. So what they can do?
I mean, if we look at the past, half century, the palace has been involved in politics, and Prem has played a role a bit like Thaksin wants to play. Prem was the king's man for decades, and was hugely powerful, even though he never was elected personally. He was always an unelected leader or an unelected Privy Council president who, because he was considered the king's man, he had huge power. The Prem's power has declined a lot recently, and now it's Wongsawan is the new godfather, the royalist godfather. And Thaksin's hoping to be, I think, somebody like that with the prince after the death of the king. So it's not it's going to be something new in a way. It's just something that's always happened in Thai politics, that you have, powerful people around the throne who take advantage of the royal favor. Prem's done it. Prawit does it now. Thaksin wants to do it. So, but I think you're right. I think a lot of Thais won't like it because the prince just is not as popular as his father, and especially amongst the elite and the middle class, who even the ones who are most royalist and wear yellow every occasion and wave their flags, they're the ones that actually hate the prince the most. So it's a strange paradox that the royalists, the real ultra royalists, are the ones who are going to try and block the prince. And when you have the middle class, suddenly losing faith in the monarch and some of the elite, you'll see a big change in Thailand. And I think it's interesting. I mean, at the moment, you see the elite and middle class, a lot of them support Article 112. I'm sure that after the succession, many of the same people will suddenly be very against Article 112 because they don't like Vajiralongkorn, and they'll want to speak freely. So you're going to see huge changes when the succession happens. And it's hopefully going to make Thailand more democratic, whatever happens, because support for royal intervention in politics, restrictions on freedom of speech, and all these negative things, there'll be much less support for these things, especially from the elite and middle class after the succession. So this is why I think the succession is so important for Thai democracy and for Thailand to get to a better place. There's much more going on in Thailand than just a fight for succession, but I think succession will bring about changes that I hope will make Thailand much more democratic also.
Yes, but talk about the succession. The Thai, military junta government right now, they want to keep the succession. It's going to be very smoothly. And what do you think this government, Prayut government, going to control Thailand until we have a new king, until the process of succession going to be completely? So what do you think the long term of the period of time of this government can be?
Yeah, I mean, this is what they want. You're exactly right. They want to stay in power until the succession. And that could happen this year, or it could be 10 years. And, nobody knows. Obviously, the king is very ill, but we don't know how long he will live. So what you're seeing, already when they had the coup, they promised there would be elections by the end of this year. Now they've been saying, well, it might be delayed, and it's clear there won't be elections this year. Now they're saying it's probably next year, but my impression is they'll delay elections for as long as they can. And they're also going to create a constitution that allows them, when they finally have elections, because after a few years, it'll be too embarrassing for them to keep on delaying elections. They'll have to have an election. So they're going to try and create a system like in Singapore where, the elite controls the election and there's only one possible outcome. Family won't be allowed to take part. All the parties will be approved by the junta. There'll be various rules to make sure that, the votes of the ordinary people, especially in North and Northeast Thailand, that they can't really influence the outcome. So I think we're going to see a kind of semi-democracy as we saw during the 1980s, where eventually we might have elections, but it's kind of meaningless. It's just an act. And actually the same people behind the scenes are in control. And they're going to try and hang on in control until the succession, so they can control it, because that's the key element for them. Yeah. But obviously it's going to be difficult, because the longer they play this game, it's going to become more obvious to more Thais that it's all a lie, that they took power to save the country and to fight corruption and to bring about reform. It's nonsense. They seized power because they want to stay in power until the succession. And already Prayut is showing the pressure. He keeps on having these crazy outbursts. The government's getting more and more worried. We're learning about corruption scandals with the government more and more. Yeah. So we're seeing it losing popularity, and it's possible that at some stage people will realize that the junta is lying to them. And we could see a thing like 1973 or 1992 again, where a lot of people rise up, which would be, a very positive thing for Thai democracy. But the tragedy of it is that if it happens, a lot of Thais are going to be killed again. And it's so sad that, Thailand has had these incidents again and again in its history, and the elite have never learned. And, ordinary people and students and others have had to give their lives for fight for democracy. People like you have had to go into exile, unable to even, live in your own country. And it's just so sad that this has to happen, because old elite can't evolve. They can't evolve people peacefully. So it has to be a fight. And that's a real shame.
What about if you think the Prayut or military junta government try to rule the country until we get the new king? If it takes like 5 or 7 or 6 years, how Thai government can deal with the pressure from international, in the world, or they can rule the countries until, the military junta government, they can rule the country until 6 years, 3 years, because right now many people say, okay, you have to give the real democracy, you have to give the power to the people. This is the big pressure for General Prayut. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I think they're going to stay in power as long as they can without having elections. But I think after 2 or 3 years, there'll probably be so much pressure to have elections that they'll have to have some kind of election. But as I mentioned, it won't be a real free election. It'll be a staged election, which allows them to pretend that they have democracy, but actually they're behind the scenes. They'll still be the ones in power. So it'll be fake. And I think that's quite likely. Also, they can stand up quite easily to international pressure, because even though the United States and other Western countries have been calling for more, for a return to democracy, they haven't really been putting huge pressure on Thailand. And we've also seen the Thai junta getting closer to China, because the Chinese are quite happy to support the junta, because the Chinese system doesn't involve electoral democracy either. Yeah. So the pressure really has to come from the Thai people, and I think a crucial thing will be the middle class and the more liberal elite, if they continue to support this junta, or whether they start realizing that Thailand is going in the wrong direction and they have to stand up for democracy and the rule of law. But if I think that there will be building pressure amongst all levels of society for the junta to be pushed aside. And it's an open question if they can hold power until the succession or whether there's a violent incident and they get kicked out before then. I think either thing is possible, and we just have to wait and see.
So the last question, many Thai people, they have the big question that if King Bhumibol had been passed away, who going to be the next king, and what happened after we have the new king? From your idea and your knowledge that you know about Thai monarchy, what do you think who going to be the next king? And if that person be a next king in Thailand, what happened in Thailand?
I think it looks increasingly inevitable that it's going to be Vajiralongkorn, as long as he survives, because he has some serious illnesses as well. So it's possible that he could pass away even before his father, although that looks unlikely. But some of the elite are hoping. But if he's still alive when Bhumibol dies, I think it seems inevitable now that it will be Vajiralongkorn, because too many people, including me and other journalists, including you, have been discussing the succession issue and bringing it out into the open. And the elite have tried with 112 and with censorship to stop people talking about this. But now everybody knows that there's been this succession battle. And it would be very embarrassing and very difficult now for the elite to block the prince. I don't see how they could do it. So I think it looks increasingly likely that there'll be some kind of attempt of it as a deal between the junta and the prince. And obviously, even if the junta gets kicked out before the succession, then the prince is in a strong position too. So I think he'll be the next king. And I think that will mean a huge shift in the power of the monarchy, because most Thais just won't have the same reverence for the monarchy anymore with the prince in charge. So I hope it would lead to a more democratic Thailand, because even if he wanted to, rule in a very old-fashioned way and try and exert his power, I don't think the prince could do it, because I don't think most Thais would accept it. So I think his role become more symbolic. And this kind of crazy ultra-royalism that we've seen in recent decades, and especially in the past decade, where, there's this crazy personality cult of the king, that will be finished. We'll never see that kind of thing again. So I think it'll be a good thing. Many people are very worried about the death of the king and the succession, because they believe it will lead to a very dangerous time afterwards. Mine is the opposite. I think while the king remains alive, Thailand will never be at peace, because there'll always be uncertainty and fighting about the succession. But after the king passes away, we'll have this succession issue resolved one way or another. And whatever happens, whoever's the next monarch, the monarchy can never have the same power again, and the old elite never have the same power again. So that's very positive for democracy, and it's something to be hopeful about.
Many people, Thai people, just wonder how you can get the information from inside the palace. Your sources had, the real, person, and they know everything going on among the Thai palace, because many Thai, even I'm a Thai, I don't know the information inside the palace. How you can do that?
Well, I mean, first of all, I don't know everything, and anybody who says they know exactly what's happening within the palace is lying. Anybody who makes that claim is an idiot, because it's quite clear we can never really know. It's very, very difficult. But there are things we can know, and there's other things that we simply will never know. But, I used various methods. The WikiLeaks cables were very interesting, because this was diplomats with special insight. And I've also found with my writing something quite interesting, that after I became better known journalist, a lot of people, even amongst the royalist elite, a lot of very senior people started speaking to me privately. Because as you probably know, even among the elite and even among the royal family, among the more extended royal family, there's a lot of people who are more progressive and more liberal, and a lot of people who are kind of disgusted by what's happening in Thailand with this militarism and ultra-royalism. There's a lot of very senior people, even within the palace, who feel this way, but they also feel they can't talk about it, because anybody who talks like this in the current crazy climate is denounced as being anti-monarchist or red shirt, as if that's an insult. So there's a lot of people who are very concerned, and they want to do something to stop Thailand going down this terrible path that it's taken, and they want to make Thailand more democratic and fair. And they can't talk openly, so many of them talk privately to me. And I've been having more and more people approaching me since I've been doing this for the past few years. So I have a lot of good information about a lot of senior people. And what I make sure is that, of course, if one person tells me something, I never just believe it. Then I go to other sources and I check it. And if you have enough sources and you check their information against each other, then you can get quite an accurate picture, or you can at least have a better idea of what's happening. So I think I've done some pretty accurate reporting. I think I've discovered, roughly the way things are going, but it's a constant struggle. And as I say, my sense now is that things are shifting a bit, and that there may be a deal being done with the prince and the junta, but I still have to confirm that. I don't know for sure, and you could never really know for sure with the palace. But what the elite want is for nobody to even try to know. They want us just to not investigate and not talk about these things. And I think we have to investigate. We have to talk about it, and you can do it if you try. So hopefully I've been providing some useful information. That's what I try to do.
Great. All right. Thank you so much, Andrew. And I'm looking forward to talk to you again. I appreciate that, and I very appreciate about your waiting and patience for my interview, because we had been take so many time for using the technology. Thank you so much, and
it's a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you. Bye bye.
Alright, so, thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye. ก็เป็นการให้สัมภาษณ์ของคุณแอนดรูว์แมคเกรเกอร์มาเชลนะครับที่ได้ให้ข้อมูลเราในเรื่องของสถาบันพระมหากษัตริย์กับการเมืองไทยคงจะได้มีโอกาสพูดคุยกันอีกครั้งหนึ่งเป็นประเด็นที่ท่านผู้ชมและท่านผู้ฟังสามารถที่จะเอาไปวิเคราะห์ต่อได้นะครับการพูดคุยถึงเรื่องสถาบันพระมหากษัตริย์ในบทบาทของการวิเคราะห์ที่มีความสัมพันธ์เกี่ยวข้องกับประเทศไทยนั้นเป็นเรื่องจำเป็นที่เราต้องพูดคุยอย่างเปิดเผยและมีเหตุผลนะครับไม่ได้เป็นการอาฆาตมาร้ายหรือว่าเป็นการที่จะเป็นการไปดูหมิ่นหรือทำให้เกิดความเกลียดชังขึ้นแต่เป็นการพูดบนพื้นฐานของการที่จะให้สถาบันพระมหากษัตริย์นั้นดำรงอยู่ได้ในสังคมไทยอย่างมีความมั่นคงถาวรและเป็นที่ศรัทธาของประชาชนคนไทยอยู่ตลอดไปนั่นเองนะครับวันนี้ขอบพระคุณทุกท่านที่ติดตามรับชมแล้วก็กลับมาพบกับ Thaivoicemedia.com ได้ใหม่นะครับสำหรับวันนี้สวัสดีครับ